When you go to a cubing competition, there are a lot of rules that you have to follow. These rules, called the WCA regulations, make sure that all competitors are competing on a level playing field and that competition results are an accurate measurement of cubing skill. In order to make sure that you succeed at competitions, you'll want to make sure that you're following all of these rules at home when you practice. In order to do that, let's go over 5 WCA regulations that you're probably breaking at home. The first thing that you're probably doing that's breaking the rules is using headphones or listening to music while you're solving. I even bet some of you are listening to this video through headphones while you're solving right now. At a real competition, this wouldn't be allowed. WCA Regulation 2I says that you're not allowed to use any electronics while solving, and that includes headphones even if they're not plugged in. I believe the logic here is that you could be listening to something that would give you an advantage, like a recording of the notation for that one alg you can never remember. If you want to use something to drown out the noise of the venue, non-electronic earplugs and earmuffs are allowed though. This one isn't a big deal at home, and no one is going to call you out for cheating if you post a solve video where you're wearing headphones. But in theory, anything that's taking some of your attention besides the current solve is slowing you down. So following this rule might help you get slightly faster times. The next rule that you might be breaking has to do with Scramble Orientation. Regulation 4D lists the specific way that you need to be holding each type of puzzle while you're scrambling it. For all n x n events, like 3x3, 4x4, and so on, you are supposed to scramble the cube with the white side on top and the green side facing you. For Megaminx, it's basically the same. For Pyraminx, you put the yellow side facing you and the green side on the bottom. For Scube, you have the red, white, and green corner facing towards you like this. Square 1 only has 2 ways that you can hold it so the scramble will actually work, and you hold it in whichever way has the darker color facing you. And then Clock is just making sure that 12 o'clock is facing up. Those are all assuming that you have a normal color scheme, which means that you have all the normal sticker colors in the places where they usually go. But if you don't, there are a bunch of backup rules on how to find the correct orientation. Most of the people who break this rule are beginners who haven't even been to a competition yet. Because of that, this one also isn't the biggest deal if you happen to break it. But if you ever try to send a scramble to your friends and their cube looks different from yours, one of you is probably breaking this rule. I do also have some bonus tips involving scrambles. The regulations also say that scrambles for every event besides 6x6, 7x7, and Megaminx must be done exactly as they are written. This way, everyone in a round gets the exact same scrambles, so no one gets luckier than anyone else, and no one gets screwed. Also, each event has a minimum amount of moves that a scramble must take to solve for it to be a legal scramble. This is most important for 2x2, where the rule is that a legal scramble must take at least 4 moves to solve. So if your timer gives you a scramble that only takes 3 moves, that's not a legal scramble and the time shouldn't count. Rule number 3 is one of my favorites. Let me read it to you. WCA Regulation 2K is all about different ways that a competitor or a competitor's results can be disqualified. Regulation 2K6 says that a competitor may be disqualified if they do not fulfill the event's requirements, e.g. not knowing how to solve the puzzle. A competitor must not compete with the expectation of a DNF result or an intentionally poor result. That's a lot of technical jargon, but the important part was that very last sentence. Basically, doing anything on purpose that will make your time worse is not allowed. At real competitions, this has some pretty funny effects. If you want to compete with a super tiny 3x3, or a huge 3x3, or a really bad 3x3 as a joke, you could get called out for breaking this rule. But that's not what people usually do at home. What's a lot more common is starting a solve and halfway through just giving up, and you either stop turning or just start scrambling the cube again. Not the end of the world at home, but if you get into the habit of doing this at home and then do it by accident at a competition, you'd be breaking the rule. And for my favorite example of all time, we have the H-perm that automatically DNFs your solve. I'm not kidding, this is a real thing. For the more casual cubers out there, this case is known as an H-permutation, which we shorten to H-perm. Normally you would solve this case by doing something like this, which is pretty fast. But, if you want to have a laugh, another way to solve this case is to flip over your cube like this and do these 5 moves 30 times in a row. This 150 move monstrosity takes at least 10 seconds to do, if not more, and by doing it at a competition, you are automatically getting a bad time on purpose, and your solve will automatically get turned into a DNF. I'm not kidding, this has actually happened. Do not do this, you do not need to test it out anymore. The fourth rule you're probably breaking is anything that has to do with timer starts or timer stops. Now we're really getting into the stuff that matters. With this rule and the next one, if you don't train yourself to follow the rules correctly, you will be penalized and it will hurt your results. There are a lot of rules about how you're supposed to start and stop the timer, and each one that you get wrong will give you a +2, meaning that your time will have 2 seconds added to it. +2s can stack, so if you break 2 of these you'll get a +4, 3 will get you a +6, and so on. So here is how you're supposed to start and stop the timer. When you start the timer, you are supposed to be touching the sensors with your fingers, so not your palms. Your palms must be facing down, and you are not allowed to touch the cube until you have started the timer. You must fully release the cube before you stop the timer. If you stop the timer while still touching the cube, that's a +2. If you stop the timer still touching the cube and do moves after stopping the timer, that's a DNF. You must stop the timer using your hands, and your palms must be facing down, so karate chopping to stop the timer is against the rules. I know all of that sounds super nitpicky and unnecessary, but when there are cubing world records that are under half a second, these rules need to be strict in order to make sure that it's fair for everyone. That's why it's so important that you practice with a stack mat timer at home. The only way to make sure you get everything right in competition is to build it into your habits every time you practice. As Kian Mansour once said, keyboard is cheating. So use a stack mat timer, kids. And last but definitely not least, the rule that you are most likely to be breaking at home is not counting your +2s and DNFs. This is so common that I've even made memes about it before, and people got mad at me because of how true it was. If you stop the timer and your cube is more than 45 degrees away from being solved, that's a +2. If it's 2 or more moves away from being solved, it's a DNF, or did not finish. That's just common sense, and if you don't count them when you get them at home, you're just setting yourself up with unrealistic expectations for when you go to compete. Trust me, I've been there. I know how tempting it is when you get a +2 to just pretend it didn't happen or delete the solve. It's so easy to think, it doesn't matter, no one will know, and no one will care. But you know who cares? I care. So do the honest thing, stop lying to yourself, and when you get a +2 or a DNF, be a man and count it. So that's all I have for this video. If you want more tips to make sure you succeed when you compete, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'll be back very soon with another awesome video. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. This is Brody, signing out.